a couple of comments about this. You know, I've been on the commission, this is probably my 10th budget, if I had to guess, since being on the commission. Of course, the first probably couple of years, I really didn't know what I was doing. I guess I can admit that now. You know, and it's rare that we have a budget that I'm happy with. It does happen, but those are kind of rare. This budget gives me trouble. I'm troubled by this budget, and I'm not, you know, I'm not pointing my finger at anybody. It's just the environment that we're swimming in, unfortunately. The Fed money that's been circulating for a number of years, you know, that money's gone. I think we're seeing that with flattening revenues. We're still in an inflationary environment. That makes it difficult to do business, especially with our stuff, because our groceries, it goes up a little bit, but I mean, we're dealing with heavy equipment, that stuff's going up a lot. We're dealing with asphalt and aggregate, that stuff's still going up a lot. So we've got some work ahead for us, and in the next 6 months, you know, we've gotta figure out a way. We've gotta come up with a solution to right-size county government relative to our income. We don't have a choice. We've gotta grow our fund balance, that's gonna make it even more difficult, so just compounding that problem, now we gotta grow our fund balance because we have to expand the jail. Like, that is not an option. As it has been explained plenty of times, we will figure out how to do it, or it will be done for us, and they'll hand us a bill. And I promise you, that'll be a lot more expensive endeavor. So we gotta come up with a timeline and how we're gonna pay for it. Our head count growth, I think this year, it sort of makes sense, we're taking some things that we had contracted out and we're bringing those services in-house, and I think we're gonna save money, or we wouldn't do that. But if you look at that growth in head count, I mean, it's growing faster than the population of Houston County. So we've got to figure out ways to do things more efficiently. We've got to figure out how to do things faster, better, cheaper. And that's gonna require us to make some potentially painful decisions. If I had one prediction, it would be this, that 14 months from now, the county will look a lot different than it looks today. And I don't think that is necessarily by choice. I don't think we have a choice. I think we've got some big decisions to make, so we gotta work that out for it. I just want you and anybody think about running for office to know what they're getting themselves into. Anyway, comments from anybody else?
I had a question on, Peter, on page, I guess it's 18, I'm assuming, on non-related salaries. Expense at 7.6 million. Can you give me a little bit more just about exactly what's going on with that? What did that consist of, 7.6? I'm assuming it's page 18, that's what I'm on.
Yeah, thank you, yeah, that is contract services, that's $7.6 million. So that's part of the $32 million
Right.
that I've described. That primarily is, we use ACPAC and, who's the other guys? Well, yeah, for paving roads. The majority of the contract services charges are coming out of Road and Bridge for the major paving projects.
3.6 million.
3.6, what was the other? 4.3.
I'm not sure, but it's 3.6 is what we got in contract service.
There's a lot of contract service funding payments that come out of county buildings, like the janitorial contract and the landscaping contracts and some of the other contracts are coming out of county buildings.
No problem, I'll look at it.
I know 800,000 sanitation dump landfill fees.
Gotcha.
And I'll have for you gentlemen, before the end of the month, I'll have for you a full budget with all the details in it, so that you can look by department, you can look by, individual areas, so you can get a sense of where these individual items are.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I got a few, I'm probably gonna get feedback, Sue's gonna get feedback. Okay, alright. So, and Chairman, you might be able to answer this too, but just a question really to let everybody else know where we're at and what we got going on with our budget and our revenues and our expenses. But explain why, you had said earlier that 11.5 million is what our policy you know, in our policy refers to, but we're gonna end up with a $14.7 million at the end. And explain why that is to, you know, the public, so they'll understand that, you know, we don't really have $3 million more sitting there to use wherever we want to. And, if you don't mind explaining that.
The county policy, I believe it's number 38, was put into place 15 years ago, whatever, and it's a formula, it's basically just algebra. You include these accounts, you include these accounts, and 25% of the expenses that are incurred for those accounts. The idea of that county policy is to sort of be your emergency reserve, if you will, like you and I would have in our personal families. But in order to be able to achieve the highest credit rating from the credit services, so that we can lower our interest costs on any borrowings, such as for the jail, that we're gonna have to do in the next few years, it would cost the county less if we could have a better credit rating. Now, our credit rating was stable for this general obligation warrant that came through, but there was a lot of conversation with the credit agency about our fund balance. And, we don't need to have those conversations.
So that difference in the borrowing cost is significant over time. And every time we borrow for a jail, that's gonna be at least probably a 20-year period. That interest rate is gonna be, it's gonna make a big difference over 20 years.
And one more question.
Yes.
Is, how long, in your professional opinion, Peter, do you think it's going to be before we're in a negative if we have $62 million in revenue and $72 million in expenditures every year? That's a $10 million difference. How are we gonna sustain that, and how quick do we need to look at generating revenue and trying to figure out what we need to do for the best interest of this county?
This needs to be a serious conversation next year.
Yeah, because, I mean, to answer your question, it's not sustainable. Now, to what Peter was saying earlier, we tend to, which I think is wise, very conservatively budget for revenue. And we account for full employment with our revenue as well. So typically what happens is our revenue comes in above what we budget, and our expenses come in below. So I would be shocked if we have a $10 million deficit at the end of this year.
I should be fired.
But that's still, budgeting that much is unsustainable.
Okay, thank you.
Here we go. Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams and a second by Commissioner Herring, I believe. All in favor of approval of the budget 2025-2026, vote say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes.